What is going on, ladies and gents? My name is Malcolm, also known as Baytuh, and today I am back with another Elden Ring build video. And just like last video, which was a high faith build, this is another high faith build that I dubbed the Fire Dragon Monk. Before I continue with this Elden Ring build video, ladies and gents, on how to become a Fire Dragon Monk badass, I would like to quickly talk about some of the positives and negatives on this build, about this build. And just like all builds in Elden Ring, ladies and gents, they all have their positives and negatives. And in my personal opinion, having testing this build out for a good while, I think that the positives greatly outweigh the negatives. But who knows? They might be a turnoff for you, but we'll see. And let's start with some negatives. And I think the biggest glaring negative with this build is the I'm not gonna say really long wind up time for the incantations we're gonna be using, but the wind up time with the incantations can take a while if you do hold in. For me, it's the RB button to cast your incantations to make them a little bit stronger and more powerful. Those can take not quite a while, but enough moments for your enemies that you're gonna be using them on to reposition themselves. If you're not careful, if you're stealthy, sure, you're gonna get them easy peasy, lemon lime squeezy. But you know, in PvP, or if they notice you, they can easily get out of the way and reposition. And plus, just like my Holy Death Reaper build, this is another not necessarily as stationary build like Holy Death Reaper using Miquella's Ring of Light, but you are standing still for like a few moments casting these incantations, so you have to be careful on that front. And I think the other negative about this build is, I mean, who knows, it depends, is that this is a very high FP mana consuming build because we're going to be using Flame of the Fell God and also Giant's Flame Taking and some other incantation that is going to consume a lot of FP, so just be wary of that. That might be a turnoff for all of you, but yeah, this is a very FP consuming build. For some of it, I quickly realized, okay, so to save on some FP, I should probably just use my badass weapons to just to hit a motherfucker in the face, because that does a wonderful job, definitely with some of the skills and the weapons I have slotted on this build. So yeah, those are the glaring negatives in my personal opinion. In the positives, of course, the high amount of fire damage that you can do on your enemies, basically either 1 to 2 shotting them depending how tough they are. And definitely in PvP, I don't think this is a really all that amazing good PvP build, but if you use it correctly and time it correctly, you can definitely catch some people off guard to really do some really awesome damage. But yeah, with the skill slotted, the talismans and the weapons and the incantation, this is a very high damage fire build, which is really damn awesome. Alrighty, ladies and gents, let's take a quick look at some of the weapons, armor, talismans, and Wondrous Flask physiques that we're going to be using for this build. And first up, it's going to be our main weapon of choice for this build, Fire Dragon Monk build. It's going to be the Magma Blade, and for the physical attacks, this weapon does pretty darn great damage against your regular trash mom enemies with your light and heavy attacks, and bosses and bigger enemies as well. But where this weapon shines the most, ladies and gents, in my personal opinion, is its skill, Magma Shower. This weapon does wonders against your regular Jane Doe and Joe Blow type enemies, and of course it does wonders against bosses as well, and mainly because it can stun lock bosses, so you get those critical hits off of them, and it's pretty darn great on that front. The second item on the list, it's going to be the Erdtree Seal. Got mine to a +9, mainly because of the fire incantations that we're going to be using for this build. And fire takes faith to use, and the Erdtree Seal is the best faith seal out there, but it does require a level 40. If you don't have the Erdtree Seal, I recommend just using the regular OG fingered seal that way. And your second main weapon, or I would say the offhand weapon, if you switch to your seal and have your second weapon in your other hand, it's going to be the Monk's Flame Mace. Mainly, the physical attacks is pretty great great. It does some pretty good work for physical attacks, but where this weapon shines the most is the Ash of War. We have slotted on there. Flame of the Red Mains, just like Magma Shower, that stun locks, and you can do critical hits off of enemies and bosses. Flame of the Red Mains does that in spades, and plus it has way longer range than Magma Shower, so that's going to be on your offhand weapon, or your offhand and your other weapon. You don't have to choose the Monk's Flame Mace, but we're keeping to the aesthetic of becoming a fire dragon monk, so you can use the Monk Flame Mace, or if I have it on deck, if I could find it real quick, here it is, the Monk's Flame Blade. You can use that as well, but either of those two weapons will do the job that we're looking for. As an added bonus, you could use the Commander Standard for those extra attack and damage, attack power bonus, but unfortunately, if you use Fire Grant Me Strength, Incantation, the Rally Standard for Commander Standard, or even Golden Vow, the attack power part of that scaling attribute doesn't scale, that doesn't stack up with Fire Grant Me Strength. You'll still get the defense bonus out of them, but you won't get the extra attack bonus since you already got Flame Grant Me Strength Incantation. I know I said fire, I meant to say flame. Now moving on to some of the armor we're going to be using. It really doesn't matter, but since we're sticking with the aesthetic of becoming a fire dragon monk, fire monk, I used the fire monk set that I got from just farming fire monks around the map, mainly around Volcano Manor, that area, but links will be in the description down below where to get the armor set. Moving on to some talismans. The first talisman doesn't really matter too much. The next three do, but the first talisman I have is the Earth Tree Favorite +2, which raises my maximum HP, stamina, and equip load. The first two, maximum HP and stamina, is pretty great, so I can become more beefier and don't die in like 2 to 3 hits. And stamina, since skills and incantations uses stamina, of course, I want my stamina to be as high as possible so I can keep using my incantations and skills. Moving over to the second talisman, it's going to be Flock's Canvas Talisman, which greatly raises the potency of incantations. Of course, since this is a very heavy incantation build with like Flame Grant Me Strength, Flame of the Fell God, Fire Giant's Flame, Take Thee. This is going to come in handy in spades right here. I got the Ritual Sword Talisman, which raises the attack power when HP is at the maximum. I would say at the start and the mid fights of most of your fights, your HP is going to be maximum because you could pick off enemies pretty easily and quickly from afar, which some of the incantations we're going to be using. Plus, it scales the fire damage as well, so that's pretty great. And of course, the Fire Scorpion Charm, which raises fire attacks but lowers damage negation. Of course, we're going to be wanting to buff our fire attack damage as much as possible. Move over to the Wondrous Physick Flask. The main thing you want from this flask is the Flame Shrouding Crack tier, which is because it temporarily boosts fire attack, so that's a must for this build. Now to some incantations. We're going to be using 5 main incantations. The first one on the list is going to be Flame Grant Me Strength because it raises my our physical and fire affinity attack power, which is going to come in handy. Of course, it's going to buff those fire attacks and physical attacks as well, which is great. The next incantations we're going to be using is going to be our big holy moly explosions incantations. The first one on the list, it's going to be Giant's Flame Take Thee, hurls massive ball of raging fire. This is how you're going to be starting most of your fights with groups of enemies or even big bosses. Same with our third incantation. It's going to be Flame of the Fell God, which summons raging fireball that explodes and sets the area ablaze. You're going to be starting your fights with a lot of heftier enemies and bosses with these two incantations here. And when you buff out with Flame Grant Me Strength and your Wondrous Physick Flask, it does does a lot of great damage. You can basically one shot to two shot most enemies with these two right here. Definitely if you double up on them, like if you throw Giant's Flame Take Thee, then use Flame of the Fell God, or vice versa, it does wondrous works. The fourth incantation we're going to be using, it's going to be Flame Fall Upon Them, which hurls 7 balls of fire at once. This is for that you can do that from a long distance if enemies are kind of a good distance away and you don't want to get up close and personal, or you want to get their attention, then destroy them with Giant's Flame Take Thee or Flame of the Fellow God. This is a great choice, Flame Fall Upon Them. Then last but not least is Agile's Flame, which also serves kind of the same purpose but does more damage, which spews Flame Breath of Agile's, I keep pronouncing this wrong, Agile's Flame from above, which does really great damage, and you can cast it twice in a row, which is pretty darn great. This is really good for taking out mobs at the same time. That it makes sense, but you get my point. Alrighty, ladies and gents, let's take a quick look at some of the stats that we're going to be using for this build. And this is a mid to late game build, so around the 140s, 150, 160 and above type range there. And we're going to be using a lot of fire incantations, which requires a lot of faith. So I do recommend pumping faith to at least a soft cap level, which is what, like the high 50s to mid to low 60s there. It is required to reach at least level 15 for Agile's Flame for Arcane, the dragon part of this build. Intelligence really doesn't matter, so you can just leave that as default. Strength, dexterity, strength. I just recommend hitting the required level for your Magma Blade and your offhand weapon that has Flame of the Redmane on it to deal that physical damage, and for the skills, of course, those light and heavy attacks. Endurance, since skills and incantations do take endurance, I recommend hitting that mid to high 20 range there. And since I'm a level 277, I do have the luxury to pump like endurance, strength, and faith as much as I would like. Mind, this is a very mind FP heavy build, so I highly recommend pumping mind to at least in those high 20s to mid to low 30s, because you're going to be using your mind a lot during bigger enemy type fights and boss fights. For vigor, I do recommend pumping vigor to at least that mid to high 40 range to even to mid to low 50 range, so you don't be squishy and die during this build, because sometimes here and there you will get hit if you're up close and personal, or if you're in the middle of an incantation and the enemy catches you off guard there. Alrighty, ladies and gents, before I close out this video on how to become a fire dragon monk in Elden Ring, I would like to quickly talk about some gameplay tips that I do recommend you use while using this build for your normal everyday trash mom, Joe Blow, and Jane Doe type enemies, some heftier bigger enemies, bosses, and PvP if you do choose to use this build during PvP. Even though this is mostly a PvE build, you can use it for a PvP. I do have a tip or two that may not help you. I mean, the tips have helped me half of the time, and the other half they haven't, because a lot of people are way better than me at Elden Ring competitive multiplayer. But it is kind of enjoyable using this build during multiplayer, because when you actually nail someone with a Giant's Flame Take Thee or Flame of the Fell God, you can definitely throw people for a freaking loop, because they get knocked down on the prone on the ground with like 80-85% of their health gone. So it is kind of enjoyable to use during PvP. But let's talk about some trash mom enemies, and how you want to initiate those fights is pretty simple. You just want to if it's like it's situational, if it's like a 1v1 or a 1v2, just take them out with your Magma Blade or your offhand weapon, easy peasy like that. Or use the skills on those weapons. I don't recommend using that much FP for like incantations to dispatch them that way. I mean, you can if you want to, if you just want to get the fight over with and done that way. And if you're from afar and you want to just take them out pretty quick, then you could use something like Flame fall upon them that has a good amount of range that could definitely target a fair amount of them to like get their health down to either half or instant kill them that way. When you're facing against bigger, tougher enemies like the omen monsters in the sewers or shielded enemies, that's when I recommend using Flame Grant Me Strength, buff yourself out that way. Then initiate the fight with either Giant's Flame Take Thee or Flame of the Fell God, because it would either knock them down prone on the ground, downing a good portion of the health, or it would down a good portion of the health. Then you can run up and use Flame of the Red Mains to like stun lock them and get a critical strike on them, or Magma Shower on your Magma Blade and take them out that way. And when it comes to bosses, this one's a little trickier. Like I said with my other build videos, I do recommend bringing a Spirit Summon with you, ladies and gents. I have my Mimic Tier plus 10 Ash with me, and it's not just because I like the damage the Spirit Summons do. They are really great of causing distractions against bosses, so that will give you enough time to either cast more incantations against the bosses or buff yourself up even more if you need to. So how you want to initiate those fights is, of course, buff yourself out before you enter the boss arena. Summon your Spirit Ash. I would say either cast Flame of the Fell God, depending if the bosses are fast or not. Cast Flame of the Fell God to kick off that fight, or Giant's Flame Take Thee. Then have the boss get set upon you and let your Spirit Summon get some attacks in. Then I would say either use Agel's Flame on them, switch to Flame of the Fell God again, or Giant's Flame Take Thee. Then run up and try to stun lock them with Flame of the Red Mains or Magma Shower and get some critical hits off that way. And the bosses should be taken out pretty easily that way, in my personal experience. And now for PvP, this is where it's get a little tricky and fun at the same time. Of course, buff yourself out for the PvP experience match. Jesus Christ, what's wrong with me? Then I would say initiate the fight with Flame of the Fell God, because it does track enemies, but slowly, really slowly, but it does track enemies. And while the other characters or player characters are running away, I would say trying to run towards them and try to cut them off and run and face towards them and like try to nail them with Giant's Flame Take Thee, or the skills on one of your other weapons like Magma Blade with Magma Shower, or Flame of the Red Main on your offhand weapon, because it's either they're going to get hit with your Flame of the Fell God or with one of the skills on your offhand weapons. That has worked with me in the past when using this build, and sometimes it hasn't. So yeah, it's kind of like up in the air with that. Alrighty, ladies and gents, that just about does it for this Fire Dragon Monk build video for Elden Ring. Thank you all for watching this, and thank you all for joining me for another Elden Ring build video. I do have one more Elden Ring build up my sleeve that I've been looking forward to doing if I could pull this off. I've been looking forward to doing this for quite a while now, so be expecting this build video to go live, I would say either at the end of this week or in the beginning of next week, so Monday or Tuesday next week. So yeah, at the end of this week or Monday or Tuesday of next week. So yeah, before I let you guys all go, ladies and gents, if you guys can please leave a like on this video, if you guys like what you saw, please subscribe for more content. That helps out the channel a lot. Also, when you do subscribe, make sure to click that little bell next to the subscribe button so you can start receiving notifications when I post videos or go live in a live stream next time. And when you do hit that notification bell, ladies and gents, make sure you set those notifications to all so you don't miss out on any content I post on this channel, be a walkthrough, let's play, channel post update, or a live stream. Please share my channel and my videos to all your friends, families, cats, and dogs, and whoever who not. And you guys can all follow me on Twitter at Baytuh, Baytuh. If you want to keep supporting me even further than just subscribing to my YouTube channel, leave a like, share my channel and my videos to all your friends and families. Please consider donating some of your extra money so you have lying around to my Patreon and or PayPal. That is patreon.com/Baytuh, Baytuh, and or paypal.me/Baytuh, Baytuh. You do not have to do either of those. That's 100% optional. But please note, ladies and gents, any and all donations are much appreciated. And with all that being said, ladies and gents, without further ado, my name is Malcolm, also known as Baytuh, and I will catch you all on my next video. Peace.